Good morning, everybody. Enter the stars. And lots of developments over the last 48 hours. First, we're going to go over this montage that we uploaded last night from the 2019 series, Star Trek Discovery. Now, this was 1 full year before the first CV-19 cases happened in China. And you are not going to believe what you're going to see next. Let's watch.
I do not understand why, but I'm beginning to think that the sphere is triggering a Kelpian biological process known as Vahara.
We're at a full stop, sir. Whatever has us, we're locked in a place. We're locked in a place.
Now, the backdrop of this particular episode is all about this strange sphere. And you're going to see this sphere. I've got a thumbnail of it in the left hand margin of your screen. And this sphere looks a lot like the CV-19 virus. The problem is that this episode aired an entire year before any of that. But yet, you look here, they talk about being locked in place, which is a metaphor for lockdown. And they talk about this particular sphere triggering people to illness. The one particular guy that you saw, he's from the Kelpian race. And it triggered his fear centers in his brain, which is at the end of their life cycle, they're fed as food to a predator race on their planet. Now, this goes on. It's not just that. There's so much more to this.
We're locked in a place.
It's a multi-phasic stasis field. It's disrupting our shield harmonics.
Like a damn fly in a web.
And there is the spider.
So there it is, of course. And I put some side-by-side images of CV viruses next to this thing. And it's really unbelievable. Now, at the end of this episode, these arm-like projections come out of the sphere, just like a CV virus, and they attach to the Star Trek Discovery ship, the starship here. Let's keep watching.
It's Saru thinks that somehow the sphere triggered Baharai. Maybe escaping its grip would stop what's happening to him. It is not logical for a virus to kill its host.
You're attaching a known medical diagnosis to an unknown entity.
There may be a way to slow the virus.
So, of course, the giant CV-19 virus infects the ship. They don't know what's going on. And by the end of the episode, they decide to let it in. Let it into the ship. Why? Because this thing is downloading all of its repository of information into the Discovery. What would that be a metaphor for? Can anybody say DNA? Watch.
If we can analyze its properties, we may be able to develop digital antibodies.
That could give us back enough control to break the ship free.
The antibodies are slowing the virus's progress. More flashes of ultraviolet light. They are growing in strength and frequency.
Now, part of the Kelpians, his name is Saru, the Kelpian race, part of the side effects of him going into this stage of his life is ultraviolet flashes of light. So I looked back to see if they talked about ultraviolet flashes of light surrounding CV-19, and of course they have. as many people had begun to use UV lights to try to sterilize everything around them, triggered by fear, there were some people that got damage to their cornea.
More flashes of ultraviolet light.
Through. Could the sphere be trying to talk to us? Using the virus as a way to make first contact.
Using the virus as a way to make first contact.
Is the virus the way that they're trying to make first contact? I believe that this is the segue into something far more sinister in human history, as the enemy, the serpent seed line, tries to mix its steel with the watery clay in the last days, as foretold in the book of Daniel. And in the King James Version, it says, "They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men."
It is no coincidence that I started feeling sick just before the sphere engaged us. My ganglia respond to shifts in my environment, like an early warning system.
Why would
I know what it is trying to say. Not first contact, Burnham. Last contact.
Last contact. All triggered by fear.
I was able to raise shields. We've gained some ground, but we're still being held by the stasis field.
I think it came to us to die.
And that's all of us in our stasis field, is it not? I wish I could be making all this up and it wasn't true, but the fact is that this episode aired an entire year before the first case of CV-19. Now, we will be uploading a video in the next few days that we did over the summer, in which we detailed exactly what was going to happen if we let things to continue on the way they were going. This was July and early August, and I put them together in a montage, and that video is going to upload tomorrow or the day after. And this was just after the 2-week shutdown. We were told that was going to all of this was going to go away if we just stayed under this lockdown for a couple weeks. And in the video, we talk about the VCs and how gradually they would be forced on every single man, woman, and child in America, that the pressure would be on from different angles, and then it didn't matter what Trump wanted, that he had already created it. He has unleashed the beast. He created it. It didn't matter if he was going to force it or not, and he knew that when he made it. And here we are. They're even opening it up for debate to talk about whether or not they would even require this for traveling in our own borders. That is now on the table. We got New York at the brink of mandatory VCs, and that area locked down. Sheriffs chasing people down who are disobeying orders. And we knew back then, and you'll see it in the video that we're going to upload, that when the companies that were part of Warp Speed, when they were talking about all these hundreds of millions of doses, we knew. We tried to tell everybody, look, it doesn't matter what Trump does. They're already building this. We can't get out of it. So we need to stop it now. We need to all stand up and say, we don't need a VC. But nobody listened, and here we are. We knew we had a problem. And this is how the NWO plan works. They have a perfect symphony of deception, as they have people lost in a hall of mirrors that we call the right-left paradigm. Fear of the Democrats getting power. Fear of the Republicans getting power. Fear they're going to take our GUNs. Fear they're going to do this. Fear they're going to do that. Now, let's go back over here and make sure we're connected up. Appears as though we are. We also did another video in the early fall. And I put it in the pinned comment, in the comment section under this live show. Not in the chat, in the pinned comment. We compared the early symptoms that they're experiencing in the trials to rabies, and how rabies affects the myelin nervous system, and that rabies was the plot line of all the zombie apocalypse films. And I pinned that video in the comments section, so check that out. But we told you this was going to start happening, and here we are. Confirmation that we were on the right track. Why do we know we're on the right track? Because we're led by the Holy Spirit. We let Him guide us, not our own interests. We don't follow the headlines. We don't follow what other channels do. We do what He wants us to do. Now, here's what interests me about this article, is that they waited until after the VCs were released to announce this new side effect, which tells me that it will be more difficult to determine what really causes this side effect. Is it the CV or is it the VC? Can you see where I'm heading with this? Nervous system side effects. Psychosis. Let's read this article. Learn this new trick here. You can zoom the page here because any of you have like a pad. Can't believe I didn't figure this out before. So let's get into this article here. December 28, 2020. Dr. Z0MB1E. Now, before we get into this article, understand that this article could be a complete lie. We don't look at the articles as facts. We look at them as how they're manipulating us or pre-programming us or preparing us for something they want to roll out. So the very fact that they're trying to depict or assert that this is possible means that there are going to be people running around with psychotic symptoms. We don't know the cause. We know probably what the cause is, but they'll never concede to that. But they're basically preparing us for something. Gosh, I wish we could have took a stand in the summer. I wish more people would have listened. I wish more channels would have stood up and not fell into the right-left paradigm. But sadly, this is the state of our awakened community. We got duped. And the future is now uncertain. For, this is a time, I've never been in a time in history where, all cards are on the table. It's like we're reaching some kind of pinnacle. This is even different than 2012 or 2000. It's different. All right. Almost immediately. Okay, let's go back up here and read this. This doctor who treated several psychotic patients who had never had mental issues before in Seattle. This is November 27th. And almost immediately, doctor could tell the patient who came into the psychiatric hospital on Long Island this summer was unusual. Freaking zombie. Patient, 42-year-old physical therapist, a mother of 4 children, never had psychiatric symptoms or any family history of mental illness. Yet there she was, sitting on a table in a beige-walled room in South Oaks Hospital in Amityville. Like Amityville Horror. This is a hint at demon possession, like the film. What? New York sobbing and saying that she kept seeing her children. Oh my man. Oh my gosh. This is crazy, you guys. I'm not going to read that, but you can see what's on your screen. It was like she was experiencing a movie like Kill Bill. Now, wasn't it Uma Thurman in that film? And we covered that, didn't we? We covered Uma Thurman, Urim and Thummim, light and perfection. Patient described one of her 4 children being, oh my gosh, I can't even read that. You can see what's on your screen. Okay, let's keep going. This is, I hadn't read this article yet, you guys. This is like kind of throwing me back a little bit. The woman who declined to be interviewed had become infected by the CV, of course, in the spring. She had experienced only mild physical symptoms. But months later, she heard a voice. Now, of course, again, I'm not saying that the CV is the cause of this. I believe that the VC will actually be the cause. And they're just trying to, they're releasing this information now so that the waters are muddy. This is why they had to wait until the VCs were done. You guys, this is where, sadly, all this is, I think, headed. I don't know this for sure, but like I said, we follow the Holy Spirit and the signs, and this just dovetails into exactly what we were talking about. So I'm not going to read much more of this. There are other instances here. Let me just scroll down for those that are interested in the article as I'm talking here. They're just giving different instances of people who have experienced this and their intentions to harm other people because, and they're blaming these hallucinations. Oh my gosh, hallucinations of monkeys. Planet of the Apes, you guys. We've been covering all of that. Wow. So, this is crazy. I didn't read through this article yet, and I'm a little bit shocked right now because it's now in our faces. So, I'll link this in the pinned comment along with the other video that we did, basically talking about exactly what you're reading right now from months and months ago. They're calling it brain-related effects. There you go. We told you. Transverse myelitis. Linked to the body's immune system response to the CV. But really, I think it's really the VC. Neurotoxins are talking about. Now, here's how this works. People talk about God, Trump was ordained by God. I will agree with you to the point to where he presented us with the lusts of the flesh, the ego, the pride, and everything else associated with everything God hates. The opposite of the fruits of the Spirit. He presented that to us as a leader to test us. And most Christians failed the test. We gave in to that and fought for it. And maybe this will be our judgment. Unbelievable. Let's go on to the next part of the show here. I don't want to dwell on this too much because this isn't about fear. Look, you're covered. You're protected by the blood of Jesus. If you believe in him. But if you're one of those people still running cover for Trump, you will fall into the judgment category. If you're going to stand in line and take his warp speed VC to try to support his efforts, you might fall into this category of a plague of people who are having these issues. Now, let's get into the rest of this show today. Didn't mean to hit you guys with the whammy this morning. Now, the media knows that it has to report what is happening to people once they get the VCs. This is just what they have to do. This is part of it. But they're spinning it to minimize the events that are happening to people. Now, I worked in pharma for 15 years. And adverse events, either in clinical trials or after a drug hits the market, they're taken very seriously. As a pharmaceutical rep, if a doctor reported an adverse event to me, because of the drug that I was selling. I had to report that to my manager. There was a very specific process. I had to submit forms. I was trained on this. And nurses and other healthcare providers are also required to report adverse events. Here's what they're required to do: documenting side effects and adverse events. See here. Adverse effects of medications and parenteral therapy. As stated above, nurses who assess that the client has been affected with a side effect or adverse effect to medications and parenteral therapy must report and record this data immediately. Let me zoom this in so you can see this. Immediately. Now, this is the case even if it's a mild side effect in many instances, or a common side effect that's actually listed on the package insert of the medication. This is required by law. Anytime a patient has a negative reaction to a medication. Here's another more documentation. Documenting an adverse drug reaction. This is out of Nursing 2021. So this is current. Let's zoom in on this. Properly charting a patient's adverse drug reaction can protect him from further harm and shield you and your facility from legal problems. But documenting ADRs, adverse drug reaction, has wider implications too, because a significant part of the evaluation for any drug's long-term safety occurs after it's on the market. Serious ADR should be reported to the A. If you suspect it, care for the patient, notify the prescriber so you get the drift. I'll link this. I'd like to see them try to fact check this one. Now, let's go back to this article. After the VC, sore arm, yes. Headache, maybe. Regrets, no. This would be a minimizing of the adverse events happening after the VC has hit the market. 2.5 hours after being injected with the CV19, doctor was hit with the worst headache of her life. I think that would be considered an adverse event. Did they report this? Let's keep reading. In her home office in Rhode Island, Wilson, 38, an ER physician with a constitution she calls horse-like, laid her head down on the desk, fighting a wave of nausea. That would be an adverse event. She laid out an involuntary groan, loud enough to be heard by her husband in the room down the hall. "Are you okay, babe?" he asked. "They're telling you right now what this is about. How are people still running in to get this?" "It felt like I got smacked," Wilson recalled in an interview. That is not how most people would get the VC, who get the VC would feel afterward. But reactions like Wilson's were not uncommon in the clinical trial results of the 2 VCs now being distributed across the country. 13% of the patients had bad headache after the first dose. About 16% of those who received the other VC made by Moderna in late stage trial had a reaction strong enough to prevent them from going back about their daily routine. So, wide spectrum of responses. They don't talk anything about in here about an adverse events, how this is being reported. They just talk about this as being safe and remarkably effective and kumbaya and the world is great now that we have the VC. Minimizing the legal severity of what many people are going through. Now, I'm not going to beat that article up either, but you can read that also in the pinned comments. Now, we all saw the nurse pass out. The fact checkers came out in droves saying that this was from pain, that people pass out from pain. It was from the pain from the injection is what caused it. Wouldn't that happen the moment the patient sees the needle? In anticipation of the pain? I've seen people pass out from that. Or as it's plunging into her arm, the pain from that, not 17 minutes later, when the pain probably was much less. So, what's obvious to me is we have a concerted effort by the media to run cover for the VC, to minimize and protect this. It's obvious to me at this point. Now, I pulled up this C to the D to the C here website talking about the demographics of the people who apparently were fatalities of this. Now, we're going to look at these. This has it broken out by age. And these are people to whom they've applied the CV death label. And guess what? Self-admittedly, if at the time of death a patient tests positive for CV, even though they may have largely died in part to something else unrelated to the CV, they're still marking it down as a CV death. And self-admittedly, they say that many of these tests come back as false positives. So just using those two facts that they admit, imagine that these numbers are probably far lower than you're seeing here. Let's go over here. Okay. So, under 1 year old, 31 fatalities. And they've got these all okay. So here's the age groups. 1 to 4 years old, 18. 5 to 14 years old, 50. 15 to 24, 500. Now remember, this is out of a total of what they're saying, over 325,000. This is less than 1/10 of 1% of that for this age group, 15 to 24 years old. What is up with all the fear? Then as you go up in age, obviously, people have more comorbidities. They develop diabetes maybe in their 40s, or they've been smoking for 10 years in their 40s, or they have asthma that has damaged their lung by the time they get to their 40s. Remember, if at the time of death they test positive, and it could be a false positive, they admit that, then that number could automatically be attributed to CV. Now let's look here. Deaths from all causes in this age group. 45 to 55 years old. This is my age range right in here. 14,000, still a very small part of 320,000. I think that's probably what, 5%. And the total, look at this large pool of total number of deaths from all causes that they could pull from and apply the label of CV-19. It almost follows a pattern here. You don't get up into the massive amounts, fully 1/3 of the deaths. No, look, 2/3. Let's see here, 92 plus 80, that's 17. So this would be 170,000 of the 300,000. So that's over half are at least 75 years old and higher. Wow. And what is this? 17 plus 9 plus 8 is 17. 170. So this is well into 200,000. So this would be 70 to 80, 70% were over 65 years old. Now, these are the facts. This is right out of the CDC website. This is what we're dealing with here, you guys. Now, hopefully the show was helpful, help open your eyes, give you a different perspective, instead of just believing what you're told all the time by the mainstream media. Let's go into the chat here. Appears as though we have a large group of people on the show this morning. I appreciate you guys coming out. If you're new to the channel, we do shows every single day. This time, this exact same time, every single morning. So if you don't get a notification, just show up. And we break down all of this stuff. Okay, let's go and let's let this chat catch up. And we'll do a little Q&A for a few minutes because that was kind of a short show. Thumbs up this video if you haven't already, please. Oh man, that's flying by. So here's what I anticipate as this catches up over the next several months. They're saying in 2021 that they're actually having on the table. Let's look that up. 2021. Let's see. May need COVID. See if any stories come up on this. Oh, here we go. Boom. So this is mainstream news now, okay? They've got this on the table. Oh, 7 months ago, people told me I was crazy. Well, Trump says if we don't have to take it, we don't have to take it. So, okay, you might not have to, but if you want to go see your grandmother that lives all the way across the United States, you might want to get that car tuned up. You might want to get a new set of tires because you're going to be driving. You're going to be driving. And you might not be driving for long because, like we talked about, there's that, Department of so-and-so at the California border coming from Arizona into California, stopping you to check your peaches and pears. That's just a cover story, just so you know. That's a cover story. So that when they're ready to lock down that highway, one of the only highways going into that part of California, that they can now have a gate there. Because if they were just to make a gate and say, oh, this is the border coming into California, and we want to make sure, the people would have freaked out. But they just say, oh, it's a Department of Agriculture. And it's just ludicrous. You stop the car and they ask you if you have any fruits and vegetables. I mean, it's literally like an inside joke. They don't care about fruits and vegetables. And if they did, they would be searching cars. They wouldn't just take your word for it. It's a joke. So, welcome to our new reality. The sad part that makes me so sad is that there's so much we could have done had we been united as a truth community and not jumped on the Trump train. We could have stopped this. We could have stopped it. So, that's okay. We will keep trying. All right, let's go into the chat here. That is going by really fast. Good morning, James. Okay, it's starting to slow down. There's Ann. Thanks, Ann. Thanks for being a channel member. I appreciate it. Those of you that have a badge by your name, you become channel members on this channel. Now, nothing changes. We don't have exclusive content for channel members. I don't want to run my channel that way. I don't want anyone to feel ostracized. There's April. April's also a channel member. But some of you have stepped forward in support of this channel, and I appreciate that. We're also moving people off of the YouTube channel membership onto the PayPal channel membership. Why are we doing that? Well, first of all, if you're a member here on the channel through YouTube, they take 30% of your membership. Second of all, if they were ever wanted to defund this channel, they would take your channel memberships. So it's probably better, if you really want to support this channel in the best way possible, to go to the PayPal channel membership. And that's linked in every one of my videos in the description. So I appreciate that. So did someone else drop out? Someone said someone else dropped out. Tiffany Dover. Wow. It's getting crazy, you guys. It's getting crazy. Why did they allow us to see the nurse drop out? Well, because they were filming it. Remember, it was a photo op. They were basically trying to show everybody that there was no problem with this, nothing to see here, move along. So they really didn't have a choice. They really didn't have a choice. So they just had to run cover, and that's exactly what they did. What did they do? They said, oh, it was from pain. That pain causes people to have that reaction. Well, that's not the case. And the medical establishment knows it. How do I know this? Because I worked in the medical establishment. It's called a reaction, and it's directly from what they're putting into you. Okay? Vagal basal reaction. So, they know this. That's the crazy thing. And they tried to say it's from the pain of the needle. So, good question. They thrive on chaos and fear, yes. Now, something very bizarre is going on with this bill that Trump signed. And what did I tell you? I said, look at what Trump does, not what he says. He went on about all the spending in the bill. Part of that spending helped his heroes, the Izzy to the real, right? A lot of that spending went to help their defense. So he signed it anyway. Look at what he does, not what he says. He's the Janus man, Two-Face, the Gemini. He almost never does what he says. And then he always blames the other side. That's how both sides work together. The other side, the left, always blames him. This is how we get fooled every single time. So here we have him signing this bill. Now it's interesting because there was another component of this bill. You guys, we got to be on our toes here. We got to be on our toes. Where did that go? Here it is. Let's pull this up. Because there's Section 230. Trump wanted it repealed. But look at this. Look what Biden has to say about Section 230. What is this about? It's about basically, okay, let me give you a direct example. If this bill was repealed, YouTube would then feel like they were responsible for all the content on their platform. They would be legally responsible and could be sued for any content on their platform. What do you think YouTube's going to do? If this is repealed, they're going to whitewash all of the content, get rid of anything that could hold them liable. YouTube will begin to look like Disneyland if this law goes away. Biden knows it. Look at this. Biden called for changes to the law because he believes that it creates room for disinfo and hate speech to run rampant online. You guys, that's all of us. They're going to try to apply that label to. So if this goes away, we're done. You might as well pack it up. And guess what? All these other sites that they've desegregated us into and decentralized us into will follow suit. Why? Because this law applies to everybody. This is why I try to tell you guys. We've been taught, everyone's like, just go to a different platform. It's not about the platform, you guys. It's about the monopoly that Google has on the number one and only video streaming platform that reaches the most people, and that would be right here on YouTube. So once this law goes out, do you really think BitChute is going to be held responsible and liable for the content on their platform and possibly be sued for things put on their platform? Of course they're not. They're not going to carry that liability. I don't care what they say about free speech. They're going to be gone just like YouTube, and it's going to be the scrubbing, the great scrubbing of the internet. There will be no more truth channels anywhere. So if you've got any ounce of sense, please don't let this go away. Now, what's the alternative? Well, the alternative is Google has too much power. They own the search engine that most people use. And now you can say whatever you want. Oh, well, maybe Google should, or why don't you just use a different search engine? It's not about that, you guys. You got to get people to use the other search engines. It's like a snowball. Google has so much power that most people just use Google products. And they make more products that more people want to use because they have all the power. And then they market back to themselves. It's a feedback mechanism. They market more and more and more, make more products, more people use it. And by the time it's all said and done, nobody really wants to use any other products. That's called a monopoly. And so it doesn't matter what other video platforms come up. All YouTube has to do, all Google has to do, who owns YouTube, is not make those show up in the search results. Just make all YouTube videos show up. See how that works? Doesn't matter if there's a BitChute and a DLive and all these other platforms. This is why I never went to any of those platforms. I tried it in the beginning. I started uploading the Daily Motion. You guys, I've been around a long time. We've tried dozens of alternative platforms. Zeekly, Daily Motion, Vimeo. There was a big Vimeo push back then. They're just not the same. Nobody goes and watches those videos. They just don't. It's called divide and conquer, and a lot of people took the bait. They're spinning their wheels and putting all their efforts in these other platforms that are just never going to go anywhere. Now, I hate to be a naysayer, but I tried to tell everybody this many, many times. We got to make our stand here. We got to say, okay, enough. You have too much power, Google and YouTube. You can't be the only. There should at least be one other video platform that does close to the same thing as YouTube that people go to. I don't know how to fix that. I don't recommend the government coming in and taking over YouTube. That's not the answer in Google. The answer is somewhere in the middle. The answer is something like maybe the government should require YouTube to offer or allow an alternative video platform that is not controlled by Google in any way, shape, or form, and have that show up in the search results. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but something needs to get done. Something needs to change. And the way we're headed now, none of us are going to be here pretty soon. You guys have all seen the channels all drop out left and right. So, here we go. I love each and every one of you. Be saved. Absolutely. These are uncertain times. Try. Even if you're on the fence. Nothing that we've talked about on the show today am I taking credit for in any way, shape, or form. I'm just a vessel for the Most High. If you're impressed with the content today, all the glory goes to God. Okay? That's where the glory, that's where your praise should be going. Not to me. I'm just a man doing his work. And if that touched your heart today, then acknowledge him. Acknowledge him. Say, God, it's amazing that you worked through Casey today. I feel the Holy Spirit. I feel the truth in his voice and you going through him. And I want to give this a shot. I want to give it a try. God, I'm not making any promises, but I want to give it a shot. I didn't believe in you before. I didn't believe in your son, but I'm going to give you a chance. And just pray. You don't have to get down on your knees. Just, if you're going for a walk, just start talking like that. Look up in the sky. You would be shocked. God will reach out to you. He's amazing. Many of you have stories of when you first gave your life to Christ and the experience you had, and you've had a physical feeling that came over you that you never forgot, myself included. So if we accomplished anything today, if just one of you was saved, then this whole show was worth the effort. I love each and every one of you. Have a great day. Be safe, everybody.